She was just a 23-year-old bread seller, sitting under her little umbrella every day, mocked by neighbors, ignored by the rich, yet still smiling through her struggles. One hot afternoon, she gave food and water to a poor old beggar who had nothing, not knowing he was a billionaire in disguise, secretly searching for a wife for his only son. What happened after that moment will shock you, inspire you, and remind you that kindness is a treasure no money can buy. So sit back, relax, maybe grab a drink, and let's dive together into this story that will change the way you see life forever. Mr. Robert was a man in his 50s whose name opened doors in Lagos, yet that night his heart felt heavy like a stone. His only son, Rhodin, was ready for marriage, and rich families kept sending pictures of beautiful girls with big smiles and bigger dreams. But Mr. Robert had eyes that could see past fine makeup and designer bags. He had watched some of these girls talk rudely to drivers, ignore security men, and laugh at poor people who came to the gate to beg for food. He told himself in simple words, "A woman who cannot greet the poor cannot guard my son's heart." So he sat by the wide window of his mansion while the city lights blinked like stars on the ground, and he remembered his own childhood, how his mother sold akara by the roadside and how strangers sometimes mocked her clothes. That memory pushed him to make a hard decision. He called his trusted driver, Kunle, and his elderly housekeeper, Mama Tinu, and he spoke softly so even the walls would not hear. "From tomorrow I will go out as an old poor man. I will sit where the sun bites, I will walk where dust rises, and I will watch how young women treat a beggar who has nothing to give them. If I find a heart that is kind without knowing who I am, I will know I have found a wife for Rhodin." Through the night he prepared. He folded away his rich agbada and brought out a faded shirt with torn collar, rough trousers, a pair of worn sandals, and a wooden walking stick. Mama Tinu rubbed his face with little ash to make it look older and tired. He practiced a slow bend in his back and a quiet cough. Before dawn, while the mansion still yawned with sleep, Mr. Robert whispered a prayer. "God, lead me to the girl whose kindness is true." Then, as the first Okada sounds began on the road, the billionaire stepped out of his golden gates, looking like a man who owned nothing, ready to search the city for a heart that could not be bought. Morning came gently over Lagos, but Mr. Robert's heart beat with the weight of his mission. The streets were waking up. Hawkers shouted prices of pure water, roasted corn smoked on black grills by the roadside, buses honked with impatient conductors calling Odrelegba, CMS, Oshodi Strait. Nobody could imagine that the bent old man, walking slowly with a stick in his hand, was the same billionaire whose mansion stood tall behind high gates. His clean car with tinted windows was parked far away, and today he owned nothing but his rough shirt, torn sandals, and a cane to steady his steps. He moved from one busy corner to another, testing. At the first junction, he asked a group of young women who sold phone accessories if they could spare him a little food. Their eyes rolled, one hissed, and another laughed. "Baba, go and sit down. Nobi, we go feed you." The words cut his heart like glass, but he only bowed his head and shuffled away. At a small buka, he greeted some girls who sat painting their nails while waiting for customers. He coughed softly and begged for water. They pretended not to hear him, their laughter rising louder than his weak voice. He smiled sadly, thinking, "This is what my son must be saved from. Beauty without mercy." Hours passed, and the sun grew hotter. Dust clung to his clothes, sweat rolled down his forehead, and he felt real hunger for the first time in many years. Yet he walked on, because his mission was more important than his comfort. Then, at a quiet bend of the road, he saw her. She sat under a wide brown umbrella beside a blue cooler. A tray of freshly baked bread arranged carefully before her. Her wrapper was old but neat, her blouse plain but clean, and her headscarf tied with the dignity of a queen who owned nothing but her smile. She was only 23, yet her eyes carried both the innocence of youth and the strength of struggle. Each time a passerby came, she greeted respectfully. "Good morning, sir." "Good morning, ma. Bread is fresh. Please buy." Some ignored her, some bought, but she never lost her smile. Mr. Robert slowed his steps and watched her from across the road. Something in her calm spirit held his feet still. He leaned on his stick, whispering inside himself, could this be the one? Before the world would see her sitting under that umbrella, Leticia had walked through years of hardship that carved strength into her young bones. She was only 23, but life had treated her as if she were much older. Her father, once a strong carpenter in the village, died when she was just 14, leaving her mother with 3 children and nothing but debts. The small family struggled, and as the first daughter, Leticia carried a load bigger than her shoulders. At 16, she left the village with her mother's last blessing and a bag of second-hand clothes, promising, "Mama, I will not come back empty-handed." She found herself in Lagos, a city that shines in the day but hides thorns in the night. She worked as a housemaid for a rich family, but the madam insulted her daily and the children threw food at her. When she could no longer endure, she left, choosing freedom in poverty over slavery in comfort. She tried frying puff-puff by the roadside, but her little capital got swallowed by rising costs. She carried buckets of sachet water on her head, shouting pure water under the sun until the weight left deep marks on her neck. Still, she refused to give up. At last, an elderly woman from her church gave her a small loan to start selling bread. That was how Leticia found her place under a wide umbrella at a busy corner of Lagos. Every morning she rose before dawn, washed quickly, tied her wrapper tight, and carried loaves of bread to her spot. She sat with dignity even though the ground beneath her was dust, and she served strangers with a smile even when her stomach was empty. Yet what made her different was not only her hard work, but her heart. Children who passed barefoot knew she would always break a piece of bread for them. Old men who begged for crumbs knew she would never send them away empty-handed. Even when customers insulted her for no reason, she answered softly, "God bless you, Ma," instead of fighting back. But deep inside, she carried her secret prayers. Sometimes, when the streets grew quiet and the sun leaned toward evening, she would rest her chin on her knees and whisper, "Lord, don't let my story end here. I know you see me. I know you have plans for me. Please, don't let poverty write my name forever." Then she would dry her tears, straighten her umbrella, and smile again, as if nothing had happened. And so, on that hot morning when Mr. Robert walked in disguise, Leticia was simply living her usual life, selling bread, struggling quietly, but carrying a heart full of kindness that no hardship could kill. Leticia's corner under the umbrella had become her little kingdom, but even there the world never failed to remind her of her low place. Every day she saw the 2 faces of Lagos, the face of struggle and the face of pride. Early in the mornings, children in faded uniforms would stop by, eyes wide with hunger. Some would beg, "Auntie, please, can I get small bread?" And even when she had not sold enough to cover her costs, Leticia would quietly break a piece, wrap it in paper, and press it into their hands. "Eat, my dear. Don't cry. One day you will be full every morning." She gave freely, even when it meant she herself might sleep on an empty stomach. But as the sun climbed higher, another kind of people passed, those who had everything yet carried no humility. They were the ones who mocked her the most. Rich girls from nearby shops with fake accents and long nails would stop in front of her just to laugh. Imagine, selling bread under this hot sun. "Is this life?" they whispered loud enough for her to hear. Some would buy a loaf, tear it in half, and drop it in the gutter, saying, "I don't even know why I bought this nonsense." She would bow her head, whispering a quiet prayer instead of answering back. Young men sometimes made her life harder. They would gather near her stand, pretending to buy bread, but only mocking her. "Fine girl like you, why you dey waste under umbrella? Why not find rich man to take care of you?" Some even tried to touch her hands in a disrespectful way. Leticia learned to ignore them, her heart heavy but her spirit unbroken. She remembered her mother's words, "Poverty is not shame, my daughter. It is pride that destroys. Work with your hands and God will bless you." Even neighbors sometimes mocked her hustle. When she closed for the day and carried unsold bread back home, people would say, "Ah, Leticia, so bread no sell today again. You go still do this till your youth finish?" Their words stung like pepper in her eyes, but she never let tears fall in public. She would answer softly, "God's time is the best," and keep walking. At night, in her small one-room apartment with cracked walls and a leaking roof, she would count the little coins she made. Sometimes it was barely enough to buy Gary and groundnut for dinner, yet she kept faith. One day, she whispered into the silence, God will send me a helper. One day, my story will change. And so, when Mr. Robert, bent over with his walking stick, covered in dust, looking like a beggar, approached her stand that fateful day, Leticia had no idea that her whispered prayers were about to be answered. She saw only an old man with tired eyes, and her heart, the same heart that had endured insults, poverty, and mockery, stirred with compassion. The sun was already fierce, pouring heat down on the busy Lagos street, when Mr. Robert's weary steps carried him toward Leticia's corner. He leaned heavily on his wooden stick, his shirt clinging to his back with sweat. And though his disguise was planned, the hunger and thirst he now felt were real. Dust clung to his trousers, and his voice was hoarse from the hours he had spent walking and testing different women. In his heart, he almost felt like turning back, thinking, maybe today is not the day. Maybe kindness has grown too rare. But then his eyes fell on the young woman under the brown umbrella. Her loaves of bread were neatly stacked on the tray, their golden crusts catching the sunlight. She sat on a low stool, fanning herself with a piece of cardboard, her headscarf tied firmly, her wrapper faded but clean. Yet it was not her bread that caught his heart. It was her face. There was no pride, no hardness, only a quiet gentleness, the kind that suffering cannot steal. He crossed the road slowly, each step echoing with doubt and hope. Leticia saw him from a distance. Most sellers would have turned away, thinking a beggar had no money to buy. But she straightened her back and greeted him with respect, as though he were her best customer. "Good afternoon, Baba. Please come and sit. The sun is too much." Her words startled him. All morning he had met only coldness and mockery, yet here was a girl who saw him not as a nuisance, but as a human being. He lowered himself onto a wooden bench beside her stand, sighing deeply. Leticia quickly adjusted her umbrella so more shade would cover him. "Baba, you look tired," she said softly, her eyes filled with concern. "Should I bring you water?" Mr. Robert's throat tightened. He nodded slowly, and before he could say another word, she brought out a small cup, rinsed it carefully, and filled it with clean water from her cooler. She held it out with both hands, a gesture of respect usually reserved for elders in her family. As he drank, his eyes glistened, not from the water, but from the kindness flowing out of her heart. When he finished, she asked, "Do you want bread, Baba? Don't worry if you don't have money. Just eat and rest." Those words pierced him deeper than any insult he had received earlier. He looked at her closely, wondering, could this truly be the heart I've been searching for? A heart that gives without asking, a heart that sees worth in a beggar. He cleared his throat, playing his role well, and said with a weak voice, "My daughter, I have walked since morning, but I have not eaten. I only have 10 naira with me. Can it buy even the smallest piece of bread?" Leticia smiled warmly, shaking her head. "Baba, keep your money. Bread is food, and food is life. God gave me strength to sell it, and He gave you life to eat it. Please eat as much as you need." And without waiting for another word, she tore a loaf into pieces, placed it in a nylon, and set it before him. As Mr. Robert chewed slowly, his heart chewed also on a truth he had nearly forgotten, that wealth can buy servants, but only kindness can reveal true character. Mr. Robert chewed the bread slowly, not because it was hard, but because each bite carried weight in his spirit. He had sat at tables in 5-star hotels, eaten meals that cost more than Leticia's entire daily sales, yet this simple loaf under a street umbrella tasted sweeter than all of them. He looked at her from the corner of his eye and saw no impatience, no irritation, only a gentle concern, the kind that reminded him of his late mother who used to serve akara to hungry strangers back in the village. When he finished, Leticia poured him another cup of water. "Drink, Baba," she urged softly. "The sun is too much today." He drank again, his eyes watering, but Leticia thought it was because of the dust. She reached for her wrapper and fanned him gently. "You must rest small before you continue walking." "Where are you going, Baba?" Mr. Robert cleared his throat, speaking slowly like a tired man. "Ah, my daughter, I have no place I am going. Since my wife died, my children abandoned me. I sleep where night meets me, and I wake where morning finds me. Sometimes people chase me away like a dog. Other times they look through me as if I don't exist. Leticia's heart squeezed with pity. She placed her hand on her chest and sighed. Yeah. Baba, sorry, oh. This world can be very wicked. But don't worry, God sees you. He has not forgotten you. As long as there is life, there is still hope. Her words struck Mr. Robert like thunder. Hope. It was the same word he used to whisper to his own son, Rhodin, whenever the boy felt discouraged. He studied Leticia's face, wondering if she even knew how much wisdom flowed out of her mouth. For a while they sat in silence, the street noise rushing around them, hawkers shouting, buses honking, people hurrying. But under that umbrella, it felt like a different world. A poor bread seller, a supposed beggar, and the quiet bond of kindness tying them together. After some time, Leticia reached into her small cooler, brought out a sachet of groundnut, and pressed it into his hand. Take, Baba. It will go well with the bread. Don't worry about paying. Eat it with joy. Mr. Robert's throat tightened again. He swallowed hard, forcing tears back into his chest. He wanted to tell her, "My daughter, you don't know who you are feeding. One day this kindness will lift you higher than you ever dreamed." But he kept quiet. His test was still unfolding. Instead, he asked softly, "My daughter, what is your name?" She wiped sweat from her forehead and smiled. "My name is Leticia. I am just trying to survive. Selling bread is small, but it keeps body and soul together. One day, maybe God will open a better door. Until then, I will keep pushing, Leticia." He repeated the name slowly, letting it roll on his tongue. "It is a good name. May your kindness never be forgotten." She laughed lightly, her voice soft as a song. "Amen, Baba, and may God strengthen your legs so you can walk without pain." Mr. Robert nodded, staring at her with hidden admiration. In all his years of wealth, power, and influence, he had never felt so humbled as he did under the umbrella of a bread seller. When he rose to leave, Leticia quickly packed 2 more loaves into a nylon and handed them to him. "Take for the road. Hunger is not good for anyone." He tried to refuse, pretending he had no space to carry it, but she insisted. "If you don't eat, Baba, you will faint. And if you faint, who will help you? Take it. It is nothing." Mr. Robert finally accepted, his voice trembling. "Thank you, my daughter. God will remember you." And as he walked away slowly with the loaves in his hand, he whispered inside himself, "I think I have found her. But I must be sure. I will return again and again until I know her heart is the same every day." The next morning, Leticia woke before the cock crowed, just as she always did. She lit her small kerosene stove, boiled water for tea she could not afford to sweeten, and prepared her loaves for the day. Yet, even as she tied her headscarf and stepped into the waking streets, her thoughts kept wandering back to the old man she had fed the day before. She wondered where he had slept, whether he had eaten again, whether anyone had cared enough to treat him with dignity. With a sigh, she whispered a prayer. "God, please protect that old man. May he not suffer too much today." By mid-morning, when the sun had begun to chase shadows from the corners, Mr. Robert appeared again, dressed in the same faded clothes, leaning on the same stick. His back was bent, but his eyes, hidden behind tired lids, searched eagerly for her. And there she was, Leticia under her umbrella, arranging loaves, her voice warm as she called to passers-by, "Fresh bread, hot bread. Buy your bread here." When she saw him, her face lit up with genuine surprise. "Ah, Baba! You came again. Please, come and sit. Have you eaten today?" Mr. Robert's heart swelled. Most people avoided beggars, but this girl welcomed him like a father. He lowered himself onto her wooden stool, and before he could even ask, she had already poured him a cup of water. That day, he tested her more. He told her, "My daughter, I have no money at all today. My stomach has not seen food since yesterday." Leticia did not hesitate. She simply tore another loaf, placed it in his hands, and added a small bag of groundnut. "Eat, Baba. Hunger is dangerous. Even if you don't have money, eat. Tomorrow will take care of itself." Mr. Robert looked at her closely, trying to catch even the smallest sign of irritation, but he saw none. She was sincere, her eyes clear, her hands steady. He ate quietly, while she smiled and turned back to attend to her customers. Days passed, and he kept returning. Each time he tested her differently. One day he pretended to be sick, coughing so hard that people avoided him. Leticia rushed to bring him water, fanning him gently, even though some customers complained, "Auntie, don't let this dirty man sit here, he will chase people away." But Leticia only shook her head and said, "If he chases blessings away, let the blessings go. I cannot chase him." Another day, he purposely dropped the small coins she had given him as change, scattering them on the dusty ground. He watched quietly to see if she would hide one. But Leticia bent down, picked every single coin, and returned them to his hand with a smile. "Here, Baba." Nothing is missing. The more he tested her, the more her heart shone brighter. She was the same every day, kind, respectful, generous, truthful. It did not matter whether customers were watching or not, her goodness flowed naturally. At night, when Mr. Robert returned secretly to his mansion, he often sat in his study, staring at the mirror, still dressed in his ragged disguise. His mind echoed with her words, her prayers, her kindness. He had seen hundreds of wealthy girls with painted faces and fine clothes, but none of them compared to Leticia, a simple bread seller under an umbrella. And one evening, as the sun bled orange over Lagos, he finally told himself, "Yes, I have found her, the wife for my son, Rhodin, the woman whose kindness no poverty can hide. Soon I will reveal who I am, and the world will know that greatness is not in riches, but in the heart." While Mr. Robert continued his secret visits to Leticia, life inside the mansion moved on as usual. His only son, Rhodin, a young man in his late 20s, carried the quiet charm of one raised with discipline, but also with love. He had studied abroad, returned with degrees and dreams, yet his heart remained soft. Unlike many rich men's children who paraded cars and boasted about money, Rhodin often chose the company of books and simple friends. He treated the drivers with respect, greeted the cooks by name, and sometimes even joined the gardeners in their work just to feel grounded. But still, he was not free. His father's wealth made him a target. Every weekend, he received invitations to birthdays, weddings, and parties hosted by families who wished their daughters to meet him. Some young women texted him endlessly, their words dripping with flattery but empty of sincerity. Others threw themselves in his path, pretending to stumble, laughing too loudly at his smallest jokes, always asking about his cars, his bank, his future. It suffocated him. One evening, Rhodin sat with his father in the grand dining room. The chandelier sparkled above them, but Rhodin's eyes were dull with exhaustion. "Papa," he said quietly, "must I marry now? I am not sure I am ready. I don't even know who truly loves me. Everywhere I turn, I see smiles, but behind the smiles, I hear only the sound of money." Mr. Robert leaned back in his chair, his heart heavy but steady. He had not yet revealed his secret plan, but he knew he was close. He touched his son's hand and said softly, "My son, you will not marry just anybody. You will not marry beauty that fades with the sun. You will not marry pride that shouts in the market. You will marry a woman whose kindness is like water. It flows whether people are watching or not." Rhodin sighed. "And where will I find such a woman, Papa? The world is full of pretenders. Sometimes, even when they act humble, I can still smell the greed." Mr. Robert smiled faintly, his mind going to the girl under the umbrella. "Don't worry, my son. I am searching, and soon I will bring her to you." Rhodin raised his brow in surprise. "You, Papa? You are searching?" "Yes," Mr. Robert replied firmly. "You are my only son, the one who will carry this family's name. I will not hand your future into careless hands. I want to see the heart of the woman before you ever see her face." Rhodin chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Papa, only you can think this way, but I trust you." That night, as Rhodin retired to his room, he thought of his father's words. He could not imagine what his father was planning, but somewhere in Lagos, a bread seller named Leticia was already carrying the answer to his doubts. Weeks rolled by, and Mr. Robert kept returning to Leticia's umbrella, always in his disguise as the tired old beggar. Each visit deepened his conviction. He saw her give bread to children who could not pay. He watched her chase away rude men who mocked him, saying, "Leave Baba alone, he is human like you." He noticed how she never once asked him, "Where is your money?" but always said instead, "Eat, Baba. God will reward me another way." At last, he decided the time had come. One bright morning, he tested her for the final time. He arrived looking weaker than usual, holding his stomach as if in pain. When Leticia saw him, she rushed out from under her umbrella, leaving her bread unattended, and held his arm. "Baba, what is it? Are you sick? Sit, sit, don't stand in this sun." She fanned him with her wrapper, fetched water, and even offered to close her stand to take him to the chemist. Her words broke his last doubt. He knew now, beyond question, that her heart was true. He whispered, "Thank you, my daughter. Your kindness has healed me more than any medicine." That evening, when the streets grew quiet, a black SUV pulled up in front of her umbrella. Leticia froze, confused. The car was too fine for her corner. Two men in suits stepped out, and behind them came Mr. Robert, no longer bent, no longer in rags, but standing tall in a white agbada that glowed under the setting sun. She gasped, her bread tray nearly falling from her hands. "Baba," she whispered, her voice trembling. He smiled gently. "Yes, my daughter. I am the same man you fed with your bread, the same you shaded under your umbrella. But my name is not Baba. My name is Mr. Robert. I am a billionaire, and I came to test the heart of women. For weeks I have watched you. I have seen kindness that money cannot buy. And today I want you to meet someone." From the car stepped a young man, neatly dressed, his smile warm and respectful. Rhodin, his only son. Mr. Robert placed his hand on Leticia's shoulder and said, "This is my son. And today I introduce you to him not as a bread seller, but as the woman I have chosen to be his wife." Tears filled Leticia's eyes. She dropped to her knees in shock, stammering, "Sir, me? I am nothing. I only sell bread. How can I—" Mr. Robert lifted her gently. "No, my daughter. You are not nothing. You are everything. You have what many rich women do not have, a pure heart. That is greater than gold." Rhodin stepped forward, his eyes shining with admiration. He held her hands softly. "If you can show such kindness to a beggar, then I know you will show love to me. And that is all I ask for in a wife." The busy street grew silent as neighbors watched in disbelief. The same Leticia they mocked for sitting under an umbrella was now being led into a black SUV, seated beside a billionaire and his son. Some rubbed their eyes, some whispered, some even cried. The bread seller's story had changed in a moment. And from that day, Leticia's life was never the same. She moved from the umbrella to a mansion, from a stool to a throne of honor. Not because of beauty, not because of riches, but because she carried a heart of kindness that no suffering could destroy. True wealth is not measured by money, but by the kindness we show when no one is watching. The bread you give to a beggar today may be the very seed that opens the door to your destiny tomorrow.